The clash between Light and Void has been confirmed. The battlefield almost certainly will be Azeroth. Blizzard have been hinting at the brawl to end all brawls for years, and they just gave us a hard confirmation that it's close, and not from a place that you would expect. The Warcraft community site had its race pages updated. Generally, there wasn't much of note, except that Velen has a new character motivation. Yes, his newly stated number one motivation, the thing that it says on the cliff notes of the character of Prophet Velen, officially is to prepare Azeroth for a war between Light and Void. With the way everything else is lining up in the back half of the Shadowlands, I think we know roughly when it's going to happen. So let's go. Let's see who's going to throw down, what Velen's going to have to do with this sort of thing, and basically just work out what's up with this story. Shadowlands threw our expansion speculations out of the window by being a bit of a left field thing. No longer were we thinking about a pirate-themed expansion or the back of Azeroth. No, now we were thinking about big arcs and big forces. Now, we've had a lot of hints about Dragon Isles as an example, but there's a monster of a story arc that I think is lurking in the background here, and it is that war between Light and Void. Now, we do pretty much know the next expansion is going to feel a good bit more traditional and Azerothian, based on, I think, what the devs have been hinting. Shadowlands sort of showed us the magnitude, though, of all of these big forces. In Bastion, a Void invasion, described as infinite, was barely defeated by the Kyrians. In Revendreth, then, a whole ward was scorched by Light just to teach the Nathrezim a lesson. The scale of these invasions are a hint themselves, and it brings me back to a quote Xalatath had. This conflict is but a shadow of an ancient war that predated the meddling of the Titans. Infinite armies clashed in ceaseless battle. Well, I think that line means a fair bit more now that we kind of know what the big cosmic picture is. And I think that's what our Light versus Void expansion may well look like. Infinite armies, ceaseless battle. So, with all this doom coming, you better get your Patreon loot before creation literally ends. Here's the Griffin pin. It's the first in our new 2022 set. Of course, we've got freshly revamped art too. The link is down below if you want some of that fun pin goodness and all the other collectibles we've got. Okay, next then, it's Velen time. Velen believes that Azeroth will be the principal battle of this conflict. Principal as in, we'll probably travel the cosmos a bit as well through this Light versus Void thing, but I think we know Blizzard wants to be a bit more Azerothian for a while. I think it makes sense too, with everything coming out of Zereth Mortis, we're realizing that Azeroth is basically the crux of the whole setting. And for either side of Light or Void to win the conflict, they'll need to secure Azeroth. Not just fight each other. Indeed, it could be that the way for Void to beat Light is to secure the power of Azeroth and vice versa. When you look, you basically realize that Light and Void have been worming their way into our planet, into our factions, and into our lives. And to me, that all looks like war preparation more than faith, now that we know how all these cosmic forces tend to operate. Turalion now sits in the throne of Stormwind, and the army of the Light is in the Alliance. We've dived into the many pitfalls there previously, but to sum it up, Blizzard have been promising big divisions within the Alliance, and I think this is probably where they're coming from. Kalia then is in Lordaeron, potentially bringing a Light dimension to the Forsaken. Of course, also, we've got the Scarlet Brotherhood, who are a new group teased in Battle for Azeroth, and they are seeding misinformation. For Void then, well, 4 old gods have recently been returned to their home plane, and I think there's a big plan for them to return. More on that soon in the channel. It's going to be a good video. The Void Ethereals, of course, then, have been infiltrating the factions and are probably among us as we speak. I mean, just think about all of the weird materials we've been handing in to Ethereals whenever we've been trying to upgrade our gear. And then think about specifically the Void Ethereals and the whole Ethereal conspiracy that we covered, I believe, last year in the channel. Then, of course, Void Elves are in the Alliance. Light versus Void is not only reflected in Lightforged and Void Elves, it's also, of course, in Illyria and Turalian, major players in the Alliance. So where will these Lightforged and Void Elves fall in this conflict? Well, I think with us. No one's hard aligned anymore. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, Turalian saw his ideology literally be destroyed by Illidan. Kalia has faith in the light, but also loyalties to the people of Lordaeron, who she really views as her people, given she's a Menethil. At least one Void Ethereal isn't totally dominated by Void Madness, though, and that's Locust Walker, who is currently guiding Illyria toward basically a path where she can truly control her power. Nothing is cut and dry anymore. I think that was really the point of Legion. The clearest example of this is the Prophet Velen, and he is preparing for war. As Sargeras was taken away in chains, Illidan asked Velen, "Did you see this fate, Prophet?" Velen replied, "Our destiny was never in fate's hands." It was the culmination of Velen's doubts. He saw the dogmatic way Xerath went about her business, and it gave him doubts in the light. And for what it's worth, Blizzard said as much in an interview. If my memory serves, it was actually in my interview with Steve, I think last year. Velen is still faithful, but as we saw with, say, the Scarlet Crusade, he's now realizing the harm of a blinding light. Looking out at the setting then, we see a cast of characters with their own notions about these various different forces. That, I think, shows us where the conflict is going to be, what characters it will involve. Just like how we have Illyria and Turalian having light and void, Anduin is being portrayed as a wielder of light and void, one who does struggle with doubts too. So we're going to be caught in the middle of this craziness. And maybe they could go in an interesting direction, you know? Maybe you're going to think of an Aldor/Scryer thing, but writ on a huge, huge scale. Maybe they'll both be on our side. Maybe what we'll end up having is this situation where light and void are both coming for us, but Azerothians have learnt how to wield light and void against them, which would kind of make sense. I mean, using light against light, we've been doing that since vanilla with the Scarlets. Using void against void is a plot point of Illyria's storyline. I think it could be an odd little way to do things, just given how the factions and all of that work, but it would be an interesting way to blend this all together and have us defend our home. And you know the funny thing is, a big lesson about Light and Void has been further punctuated to us in what has been revealed with patch 9.2. You see, we'd been told things for ages. Back in the Burning Crusade, when Muru turned to Void, it told us that the forces are cyclical. And then, of course, Warcraft Chronicle says that one force cannot exist without the other. I think we'll be reminded again in 9.2 then, when the Deciphered Codex book tells us that light cannot be defined without dark. Of course, that's something we knew already, but I think it's telling that Blizzard chose to underscore that point in a new content patch. So, you might be wondering then, when? The war is imminent, battle lines are all but drawn, but we're still stuck in the Shadowlands. So, when's it to happen? What's going to happen? What could this look like? Well, I think we should consider Shadowlands to be Blizzard's big step on a cosmic arc, but it's one that I think they want to bring home, based on a recent enough interview that Ian Hazzikostas gave. He sort of floated the idea of doing a bit of a TikTok format between more crazy out there space expansion, you know, Outland style or whatever, and then a more Azerothian feeling expansion. And I think all of these more cosmic themes, sort of larger, story ideas, those could totally fit into that in a way that still makes us feel like we're on Azeroth and this is World of Warcraft. So I think they're going to be bringing it home for the next expansion. But even with that, they can still have these huge, huge plot beats. I think what all of this says is that if we go to, say, the Dragon Isles, for example, we're still going to learn there about maybe some more of Azeroth's connection to the first ones, or what Azeroth is, or maybe what the dragons truly mean to Azeroth. You know, if there is this place called the Dragon Isles, that is pretty much a big mystery, where the dragons kind of don't tell us anything about it, and then basically totally Stonewall Rathian when he tries to search for it. There's definitely more there. And then, of course, there's Elune. I mean, if the whole usual Stormhound thing goes, then it's a bit curious that we have these Elune-y feeling things being there for the mounts. And I think as well with the story in-game, Elune's obviously being teased, being developed. More is going to happen. But throughout the story then, the tensions between Light and Void, I think will build. They will build through, say in Lordaeron, through Kalia and the Scarlets. Maybe they will build through the Void Ethereal plan to infest us with double agents. Maybe that will climax. Throughout the next expansion, even if it's just through the B-plots, I think it's going to be evident that key players are preparing. Maybe it will be the expansion after the next one, when stuff truly goes big and truly happens. Maybe Blizzard want to show us the home we're fighting for by taking us back home before they do the big fight. I think that would make sense. But before all that, we need to keep our eyes on what happens in 9.2 with Zereth Mortis. I think something huge enough is going to happen at the end of that raid. I think it's the sort of thing that will be really impactful for the setting. Now check this out. In 9.2, we meet an Oracle of the First Ones, and they believe that when Azeroth awakens, she will awaken the cosmic forces. Now, whether that's to their full potential, or whether it's literally waking First One's consciousnesses behind each force, we don't know. That's crazy. But she says her voice will awaken the others. And then she lists the cosmic forces. Now, I want you to go back to Ogmot's dream journal from Legion. His final passage reads, "Roused by her screams, a door, a path, ours, ours." The Jailer is on course to attack Azeroth. Could her screams, even her literal screams as she takes damage during the Jailer boss fight, could they somehow be the avenue for the Void Lords to manifest? If Azeroth is indeed at the center of creation, or is vital to the running of the universe, then what happens when she experiences pain, torment? That surely has to impact everything else. Could her awakening galvanize the light to war? Could it finally mean that the AU Zera says, "Hey Yrel, it's time"? Whatever happens to Azeroth at the end of patch 9.2, I think it's the moment where we'll maybe be able to, in the future, sort of point back to and say, this is when the big light-void clash became inevitable. Killing Argus turned a key for Zovaal. Perhaps killing Zovaal will turn a key for Void. Indeed, as you'll see pretty soon, I think it's possible that they've seen this future, expected it, and rolled it into their plan. But you'll have to tune into the channel probably next week for that video. Okay, so Light versus Void. Yeah, maybe maybe Blizzard didn't think as many people would notice when they updated Velen's page in the official website, but I mean, goddamn, what an interesting. I mean, not interesting. I mean, it's kind of obvious as what Velen would do, but I suppose it's just interesting that Blizzard kind of chose to confirm it in such an outright way, but also, they didn't really draw attention to it, did they? Maybe it's the sort of thing they did that knowing we would all talk about it, which would make a good deal of sense. Anyway, I'm done talking about it for now. So if you want to get some cool merch and other cool things, you can check out the Patreon, where of course we are rolling out the 2022 series of cool things for your home, for decorating and your own character customization. All right, have a brilliant day. Thank you for watching. See you next time.